Okay, call to order. May I have a motion to approve and accept this agenda without amendment?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and make sure I counted 5 since we're a couple short. All right, Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right. You see no recognitions. Samantha, do we have any communication from the public? Yep.
I do not have any, no.
Okay, and I don't see any on the agenda. All righty. I need a motion to approve and accept the consent agenda items as recommended.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions on that? Jim, was that you or Ryan that seconded it?
It was Ryan.
Ryan, Jennifer. Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes. Right. Thank you, guys. Okay, information only. We will start with the year-end facility construction projects. Who should we be looking at for that?
I think we're going to have Tim talk a little bit about as far as year-end facility, that has already occurred, and we're pushing towards year start. The summer just flies by, and so our obviously big projects is to get Heritage open, and it starts a chain reaction as far as getting everybody moved and teachers moved and getting ready for lots of new students. So Tim, if you would walk us through any year-end projects and then catch us up on Heritage, please.
All right. Well, first of all, I think Samantha gets a lot of enjoyment out of being able to shut me up and turn me off. So I'll start with that. So I'm just going to kind of touch base on what we did last summer and what we got going on this summer and what we have in the near future and some things we have coming up that we're going to rebid some things. So I'll just kind of go through my list. And last summer we basically finished up our 10-year facility audit and carbon paint. We carpeted and painted Ashland Ridge Elementary. A lot of these things fall in a facility audit that took place about 10 years ago. And through the good work of our district and Jennifer Jameson and Bruce and Darren and Matt Adams before him and Jackie, a lot of the projects we had put on our 10-year facility audit probably 6-8 years ago, we've already got done. And so that allows us to do some more bigger and better things. We put a new roof on Southeastern Terrace last summer. We started Heritage Elementary last spring, rolled it all the way through to now. Actually, today, the first day, we had some of our actual Ankeny Community School District staff down there started the final cleaning in one of the areas. Some things are starting to be delivered. We look like we will start taking pieces and parts of that building mid-June and have full control of the building by July 1. You'll notice that, which allowed us to move into Terrace. Terrace, we got a jump start on the turning it to an early childhood center because of the COVID and being out of school, waiting for the board to make a decision on when and what we were going to do. So Terrace is, I guess you could call it a hot mess right now. The floors are tore up, no different than what we did at Northview Middle School 2 or 3 years ago, but that's going quite well. If you drive by there, you'll notice that the playground is gone. The PTO took an alliance to that playground. That's here years ago, and Aaron, I think, might have been the only one involved when we did the Miracle Park deal. And so we're actually we took that playground down, and some of it's going to East with some of the students, and some of it is actually going to Heritage with some of the students. And so at the savings of about $50,000. Last summer, we completed the district, last summer through the spring and summer and the fall, we completed the district projector plan. So all of our classrooms have ceiling mounted or wall mounted projectors plus voice amplification, which was a really big component on the teaching and education side of things. Brad and I are in the process of starting the planning on the next go around there. Believe it or not, we're probably to the point where we almost need to replace stuff. It sounds like it doesn't seem like that long ago. We're going to replace the stuff, the projectors at Ankeny High School and Southie Middle School. They're almost 10 years old now. We put all new LED lights in the classrooms at Northeast, and we've done numerous concrete repairs throughout the district on playgrounds and driveways. And hats off to our custodial staff there, because they're our eyes and ears at the building and do a great job of letting us know as a facility committee what things need to be repaired. At the middle school level, we've repurposed some classrooms. It seems like we're continually repurposing classrooms as the needs for special ed grow. And we've done that at Prairie Ridge Middle School last year, and a couple of the things we've done at the high schools. We actually have added 3 outdoor classrooms. And when I say an outdoor classroom, basically it means a park shelter at Crocker, East, and Ashland Ridge over last summer. And those were basically funded by the PTOs. It's a great project for a PTO. It's very similar to the one that Jim Ford probably put in at Westwood years ago, or had put in at Westwood years ago. Teachers use it, kids use it. It's maintenance free, so it doesn't add any more maintenance to our staff as we grow as a district. At Parkview, most of you are well aware that we completed phase 1, and we were going to do phase 2 this summer, or start phase 2 this summer. Bid process started relatively right at the beginning of the COVID. And so with the uncertainty of COVID and the uncertainty, I think on bid day, one of the carpet factories actually shut down. So so we came in about 25% high. As soon as the architects get done with the design for the high school additions, they will start working on the Parkview phase 2 again and doing some value engineering and set a new bid date for that. Last summer, we also completed the Northview Middle School phase 2, the front entryway, ticket booth, and some more restrooms, which leaves us down to one more phase up there, which is phase 3, which will be the team rooms to the north, and which will also include a district meeting room as a second level on those team rooms. Darren and I had just started the process of trying to work together on a 10 to 15 year plan, trying to get committees involved on a 10 to 15 year plan, and the COVID hit. So that will be coming in the near future on what does this district look like the next 15 years. We have the design done for Nevelin, which will basically move the Summit and the Beyond students down into the area where you guys are currently, and make that basically a school, and then would shift the district off to the 3-story and the 2-story part of the building to the south. That we hired an architect for that. The design was done with the COVID and with the high school additions and some other things. We've pushed that back, working with Jennifer Jameson on the funding on how we get our projects done in the amount of time we need to get them done. Did some small things at Orbis. We did some small things at the high schools. And then we put a committee together for the high school additions, and with the work with a lot of work with the committee as much as we could till COVID hit, with information from Bruce, we somewhat divided that project into, we know we need to have the educational wings put on, the south wings put on to have the ability to serve all our students next year. Part of it, after meeting with the PE staff, special ed staff, we have also put a new wellness type PE center on the north end of the building. So this coming up next week, or the next board meeting, you will approve the plans and specs. I will put a little note together for Bruce's board report, and I will actually send you a drawing of the plans. We probably had two or three meetings before COVID on what this new spaces would look like. The budget came in all in at 29 million. We understand for sure we have to do the educational wing first, so we're bidding that, and we're bidding the PE and wellness area as an ad alternate, with hope that they will all come in underneath the 29 million. If the ad alternate does not come in within budget, if we come in at 3031, we will push the wellness area out to when we can have financing and funding for that. So we do feel very secure that we will have the funding for sure to do the educational wings. It's a L-shaped area. It does not take any space out of the media center. It really makes the architect's done a great job. Darren and I sent that out to Jen Lindeman and Pete Apple for initial review. A week ago, we brought the committee back together and had them review the plans so everybody would know. Everybody put their input in, and now they would all know what they're getting. So we don't have any conversations as why didn't we get this? And so after that meeting, we had a great, I felt really good because we had very few things that we didn't get covered and very few critical factors from any of the teachers or the people that were on the committee. So that when you put a committee together and everybody pretty much gets everything they've asked for, besides a few little things, I think we did a good job with that. That about covers it in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Aaron,
Aaron, Amy. Aaron's hand was up first. Go ahead.
just curious on the high school additions, if those wings are following the similar patterns to the other educational wings in terms of I think we're originally set up in kind of learning community settings. Is that still how we're operating those, and is that how they're being built, or?
Absolutely. It's got the 4 science rooms. It's not exactly like the original design, Aaron, with that V shape, but it actually to not take any room out of the media center and to help the flow of traffic, you'll be able to enter the 2 different. So you would be in one of the older educational wings and be able to enter the new educational wing. It'll have a courtyard in the middle, which is going to be completely concrete, so it'll be maintenance free, but still has a natural light. And Darren and Jen, and who've been part of that building since it opened, the flow is really not going to be affected, nor do we take any. One of our biggest worries was taking space out of the media center just by the way those were originally designed. So it's going to be kind of an L-shaped wing. It'll look very good with the building, but you'll be able to enter it out of by the Perky Hawk into there, or at the end of that wing that down by the science. But we had science teachers involved, and so there'll be 4 science rooms, just like a wing that is right there, just a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Excellent.
Can you just explain to me a little bit what a PE wellness center is, or what will be housed there?
It'll more than likely will be the cardio equipment, the weight room equipment, the ability for the PE to support their curriculum.
Okay.
They seem to be the wellness program, or you call it wellness, you call it weights, you call it personal. I mean, it's busting at the seams right now. And originally, when we got together, Amy, it was a $22 million budget and really didn't cover anything with the PE area.
Okay.
That also allows us to take the second floor of the north end of the buildings and there's some classrooms that are actually being used for cardio equipment stuff in them. We can free up some meeting space. We know the special ed program is not going to get any smaller. You can put special ed room after special ed room. So we also have dance team, cheerleading that they use the cafeteria, which isn't one of the safest areas to be doing that. So we can move them up into the current weight room. It's a shift of a lot of things around. That's where we're at.
Thank you.
It also allows us to have summer programs and a single point of entrance.
Okay.
Instead of coming in the front door. I mean, when you have a summer program, we just went over the card access on that today too with Stephanie, and I went over it with the architect today.
Thank you.
I think it's important for the board to understand that bottom line is we need 1,868 spaces, and while we would like the fitness and weight rooms with ending up the way they are and things not guaranteed, you, having built buildings, what you do is you do the have tos and then you do the want tos and you put those as add alternates. And if they come in, and sometimes they come in and you get to do everything you want, and sometimes you don't get to do anything you want. And part of the construction that we have to consider now is every new project is you have to consider tornado or the tornado rooms. And while it's not, it seems strange that you have to put it only in your new buildings and not your old buildings. And they're like, well, you could put it in your old buildings, but it's very, I mean, it's in the hundreds of thousands per building. And so that's a cost that we haven't had. And so, and as the district moves forward, that we need to count on. And the other thing the board needs to remember is we need to always remember, we will never get away from it, is asbestos removal. We always seem to run into it, and it has to be mitigated, and there's a whole process to it. And so I almost tell Tim, add that into the project, besides the 10% soft costs, that percent of the project is always the architect, and whether you do a construction manager or a GC, 10% of the project is already off the table. And so you're left with 90% of the money. So.
And yeah, Bruce is very correct. This one will have a hardened shelter in the education wing. So the talk was a hardened shelter in the wellness area, PE and wellness area, but we know we have to have the education wing. So we shifted the hardened space to, and the city is driving the hardened space. Now, over the last year or two, the city has backed off on what a FEMA shelter looks like. The original FEMA shelter that they were going to put into place was going to be similar to what they put it into place after Hurricane Katrina, I believe. We don't need the ventilation. We don't need the extra restrooms. We don't need the extra generator. We need a place for those kids to go for a short period of time and be safe. But I don't want anybody to leave here tonight thinking that we haven't thought about our other buildings, because a few years ago we had our insurance company come into our other buildings and talk about the best places to go for a tornado. We also added some clear armor, which is similar to a shatterproof glass to a lot of our exterior windows. So if something would hit that window, including a sledgehammer, it would not shatter. So we've worked hard over the last few years on that part of it, and knowing going forward, from this point forward, we're going to be putting a tornado or storm shelter in at every building. And how do you put that in to make it usable space? So that's just driven by the code, no different than years ago when the people writing the codes came out and said you got to sprinkle every building.
I had a couple questions, Tim. Just for clarity, especially for the new people, what's the student capacity that's going to be added to each of the high schools with these new additions?
400. Bruce said the number. It's going to bring us from 1,400 to 1,800 and odd numbers.
68.
Yeah, 68.
Great. And then you mentioned Orbis a little bit. Are things about done when it comes to the repurposing of the Orbis space, or is that, I know the students there were working on projects and.
They are using the Orbis space. We have done some small upgrades. We have not yet to sit down and get the architect on board to the beauty of the Orbis space is they're using the space, And so you've heard me say it before, they're living in the space. And so we really haven't done a lot to there besides some ceiling work, some painting, some cosmetic stuff in some of the areas. They're making do with what they have. And I'm not saying it's a bad space, but when it comes time to design that, we'll get with the teacher and Jill and Carol and Jen Lindeman and the architect, and they're going to get the best design space to fit their needs because they've actually lived in their space for 2 or 3 years before we actually going to do any work there.
Is that something that'll be built into like you said, you just kind of completed the 10-year plan. Is that something that's going to be planned into the next?
We haven't even really started the 10-year plan.
Okay.
The 10-year facility audit. The facility audit is a different entity than the 10-year, 15-year plans, the future plans. So Darren and I were in the process of putting a committee together to look at the 15-year plan. And so that would fall into that 15-year educational plan. The facility audit was some work that Matt Adams, Jason Albrecht, and I did with a group of teachers and administrators on how do we keep our old buildings up to speed with our new buildings? How can we tell somebody that they can only have 2 colors of paint when I put 15 in a new building? And so which included carpet, paint, LED lights, HVAC systems, and we have a pretty comprehensive PEPAL plan that Dallas does some fabulous work on that we use for our perennial projects, and including painting, including carpeting, including HVAC systems, including maintenance equipment, including touch-up paint. And then we have some one-offs. I didn't touch base on the Southie Middle School. We repurposed their existing cooking lab, which had 2 stations, into a full-fledged cooking lab for family consumer science because Scott Litchfield has a plan to be productive in all his kitchens. And years ago, we designed our FCS kitchen as a shared kitchen with food service. Well, as we grow, they have more lunches. It gives far less time for those teachers to be in those FCS classrooms. So we've worked on Southview. There's some conversations going on now at Prairie Ridge Middle School and how we can get that classroom out of the production kitchen.
Awesome.
There's 2 different plans, and the facility audit and the 10 to 15-year plan. The facility audit, we really got to revamp both of them right now.
So the facility audit's more about adding buildings with growth, and the other one's more about keeping everything up to standard.
Reverse. Facility audit is just exactly what you just said, but just in reverse.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Hey, anyone else? Oh, Katie.
I just have one question. Just because I'm new to this, Tim, when we pull together a committee to get feedback on remodels, like who's a part of that? Like who do you pull in for that?
So this was something new that Bruce and our staff put into play within the last few years. So basically, when we did not do it for Rock Creek, we went from Southview to Rock Creek, and away we went. When we finished Southview, we started Rock Creek. So before we built Heritage, we brought in, basically invited all the elementary principals, some special ed staff. I think at that time Sharon Ingerbrand was part of that committee, and then it's just a group that I talked with Al Neppel on that to put a group together to help design Heritage, because we want to get better, but we also want to be more fiscally responsible. So what works in the building, what doesn't work in the building. So it's usually I call it a user group, Katie. And so we put a user group together, and then we did it again for high school additions. And with the high school additions, I let the principals put together the group, which was their admin team, some special ed teachers, Darren, Steph, myself, Bruce was in on some of it. So, and then we bring the architect in, and he sat up here in this room actually and wrote down all the ideas. We just started with bouncing ideas off of it, and then he went back and tried to put them on paper the first time, and then we picked it apart again. Unfortunately, with the high school additions, 2.5 months ago, and right down to the final, COVID hit. So it was very difficult, but John had a pretty good idea. That's why I wanted to bring them all back around last week to show them what we came up with. And that's the component I think we've missed in the past, is everybody goes into that meeting and asks for what they want, or what they think. And we've never came back around and at the end of the day said, this is what we're getting. So when the people get to the building, they understand what they're getting. Does that help?
thank you.
When we did the original 10-year plan, we brought in parents who were in the trades, as well as parents who knew nothing about construction. And it was very, very helpful to have people say, well, I'd like to do this. And then you would pair them with somebody who worked in that field, and they would be able to describe to them, that's a great idea, or this is why that wouldn't work, is the ceiling would fall down. And so when you're starting to plan out the next 10 to 15 years, you want a bigger user group as far as what does the next 10 to 15 years look like? And when you talk about FCS, which you mentioned, if you have to keep 6 feet of space in between, what does that look like in the labs? Because